second.
Okay.
We are live on YouTube. Well, welcome everyone. This is Holistic Health on Topic. This is a brand new show of coming to you with different beautiful guest speakers, co-hosts, combination to start to bring different avenues of your life into perspective. Holistic health is so much more than what you can possibly think. Ultimately, it is whatever impacts your life, which means that could mean anything that's open for subject of topic. So when you want a particular topic, please put a comment in the chat for us, and we will do our very best to provide it. But today, my name is Karina Carj'an, and a holistic health practitioner and an energy worker with bioenergetics and ancient spiritual energy healing arts. And that is my perspective with holistic health as well as wellness and fitness. And Jeremy,
Hello. Hi
you want
there.
to introduce yourself to the audience?
Absolutely. My name is Jeremy Gilsoul. I am a licensed acupuncturist and functional medicine practitioner with over a decade and a half of experience. Um, Before that, believe it or not, I was a deputy sheriff with a whole slew of degrees in education to back all those journeys and experiences up. My primary specialty is in gut health, hormone response, and traumatic stress uh, impact on our physical, mental, and emotional, spiritual being. So I'm super excited to be here, thrilled, can't wait for this.
Thank you, Jeremy. And Colleen.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Colleen Burrell, and I will be your co-host today. If you have any questions, just drop them in the chat, and I will be happy to get back to you.
And Colleen, would you also like to tell them what you do?
Absolutely. So I am a creative digital marketing specialist, and I specialize working with holistic health practitioners and heart-centered coaches. And I'm absolutely thrilled to be here with both of you today to discuss holistic health.
Wonderful to be here. And yes, we all have culminating, beautiful, intertwined tapestries of life experiences that we've done. Right now, we're just voicing to you where we are sitting to hopefully help you on guiding any place or any question you might have on the topics that we're speaking of the day. So, Jeremy, in holistic health, what is your basic viewpoint for an individual when they hear the words holistic health? What is it that you feel they need to consider?
That's such a great question. And I think it depends on the person, right? So
Mhm.
for some, especially those who followed more of a traditional Western science approach, when they think of holistic health, they think of, okay, I have to think about the fact that all of my systems of my body might be connected. And that's true. I think, though, when we start to talk about it from more of a, 15,000 foot view versus, right there in front of it, I think a holistic approach really takes on that body, mind, spirit concept. In Chinese medicine, they actually call it the three treasures, body, mind, and spirit. In my clinic, one of the things I like to do, and Karina, you know this, I think of my healing clinic center as a spiritual retreat center disguised as a medical clinic. Um, but I think of the human experience as almost like these little bubbles. Imagine this little orb in front of you, and you have the physical body orb, and then you have this mind orb, and they're like connected to each other, little bubbles like hanging out. And then you have this emotional bubble that sits there as well, and it
I can
connects
feel
to
that.
both of them. And then you have this spiritual orb. And you have these four aspects of the human experience. And but a big difference here is a mental and emotional. I do differentiate this. The mind, we think of the mind as a singular thing, but emotion and mental capacity are very different responses. The point of this is the physical body is the anchor for the other three bubbles in this physical manifestation. And when a person thinks of holistic health, that concept is you have to really kind of consider all four of those layers and how am I giving them attention and working to be my most optimized, as I like to say. How are you creating good function? How are you creating a dialogue and a communication with those layers of yourself so that you can truly function at your most optimal? And then we like to think of that as our best.
Absolutely. And and yes, the physical body, because we are in this physical realm, is absolutely the anchor here. And regardless of people's concepts of working with spirit and thinking it's woo-woo, but actually it isn't. It is the invisible world. Like gravity is invisible, yet it impacts us. You can't touch it. You can feel what happens because of gravity, but you're not visibly seeing it. But it's very real. And
Mhm.
so, coming from spiritual science, which is my area, and holding a doctorate in spiritual science because of decades of training with beautiful Sufi masters and Qigong masters and a whole plethora of things my whole life. Our approach, and my approach in this culmination, is to understand, just as Sufi has a simple saying, it's spirituality with practicality.
Mhm.
So, to even break it down easier, it's working with energy, divine energy, which is everything is energy, and how to actually start to feel it, to embody it so now you can harness it and direct it. And once you're in that mode and open up the mind enough to start consider this as a possibility, because I know it's very outside of the box for a lot of people. In this process, we start reconnecting and rewiring the parts that have been disconnected in our physical bodies, in our mind, to the point where the mind has been running away with us, but actually we're supposed to help tame the mind and train the mind and give it direction. So we're really the ones in charge, not our mind running amok. And in all that, the beautiful emotion that you start to feel and start to see and start to get clarity of what you do want and what has been blocking you from moving any further, and how come you're in a do loop, and why does it feel like a carrot on a stick? You're almost there and then poof, it goes away. Well, in my field, it is about the power in the energy of words, your thoughts, your actions, to help realign where your real desires are, but understanding what your unconscious is really running the show, and how to start to repath your neural pathways in your physical being to start allowing for these changes. So, in the process, we start raising our vibration and we start expanding as a human being. And in that expansion, our perceptions open, our heart opens more, and then the infinite possibilities are allowed to pour in. And yes, there is magic to part of it as well, because it is magical. But the universe there, the unified field is there for all of us because we're all part of it. We're not separate.
Mm.
And so when people think everything's separate, that's where the big disconnections come. And everything is available to everyone. It's just knowing how to get there again. It's reawakening to who we really are. So that's the approach. So it encompasses the mind, the spirit, the body, the emotions, all of it, because it's the source energy. So that is my short version of holistic health.
Tell us how you really feel. Um, there's so many things about that I'd like to just add to and piggyback on, and especially in my world, where I get a lot of clients and patients who will come in having, physical distress, major physical concerns, whether that's, chronic pain response or true lifestyle diseases, autoimmune diseases, severe hormonal dysregulation, and so on. And one of the things that's opened up for me is when we talk about the fact that the body, the physical body, is the anchor for the other three. A lot of times, again, in a Western culture, we're always looking for, well, there has to be something biologically wrong on a cell level. Your DNA is not working, your genetics have failed you in some concept, or they still keep teaching that outdated model of genetic predeterminism and things like that. And one of the questions is always, is that really the layer where the wound or the malfunction, the disease is actually occurring, or is again because the body is the physical anchor and holding those other three spaces, is that where you're going to see the symptomology, but the true wound, the true concern is on one of those other planes. And when addressed, when cured, corrected, adjusted, things start to flow again, and those physical symptoms, those signs, they start to dissipate. There certainly are diseases of the physical body. I'm not denying those concepts, and yet there are several opportunities where something drove that response. So was it something on a different level? Was it a combination? I think of them like gates. What happens to us on one direction definitely affects the other one. Like, a person breaks their leg, and yes, their physical body's broken, but 3 months later when they're laying around, they're going to be pretty depressed. You can't move around, and so physical injury definitely affects mental and emotional perception. But then the question is, well, if the gate swings that way, then the gate swings the other way. Mental and emotional perception affects physiology. And so it's this kind of concept where we can look at it from different angles to again optimize ourselves to get things moving and flowing. And that's pretty important. When it comes to that holistic approach, we can get very myopic in well, I just need the biomarker to look like this and then I'm healthy. That might be another great conversation we actually ask is, what does health even mean? How
Mhm.
do we define health? As a medical expert, I assure you, there's not a specific standardized quantified test or a line where if you're like, I'm to the right of that line and therefore I'm healthy, and if I fall to the left of that line I'm unhealthy. You can find that your biomarkers are completely acceptable within the standardized ranges, and yet you're really not healthy. You're sick. You can be super skinny and fit and super dysfunctional and have a whole bunch of things raging under the surface where disease is prevalent. You can be
Absolutely.
overweight and actually be metabolically fit. Like there's so many different concepts to ways to look at this term health that sometimes really needs to be dialogued out. And that's one of the first conversations I have with my um, clients, my patients, is let's create an agreed upon way of quantifying these kind of terminologies so that we now are speaking the same vocabulary. One person's version of health compared to another person's version of health,
Absolutely. The
not necessarily going to be the
concepts.
same thing, right? And so, it really does matter. And you talked about this. There's power in the word, right?
Mhm.
Uh,
It's
there's a reason
because
why
the
we
word
call it,
carries the vibration.
yeah,
And the
there's a reason why we call it
vibration
spelling. It really is magic, right? We even call it cursing and jinxing. Like, it's hilarious how people don't even realize we still use these terms of, yeah, it's called spelling. Okay. Well, you're casting a declaration, an affirmation to the universe, and based on several laws that kind of permeate the universe, it responds. And it's not just the law of attraction, right? That's the probably one that's very famous and on people's
it's the
minds. But
famous one, but
right,
the
transmutation of energy and the law of gestation, and like there's so many of these that are all kind of going into work, but the word is really powerful. So how we define those concepts to begin with.
and what we take ownership of
Oh,
instead of
absolutely.
just acknowledge a condition that is existing temporarily at the moment, and temporarily itself could be this period of time or that period of time, but it's still temporary if you allow it to be temporary and if you allow it not to take possession, and all those parts matter. And all the different areas, some people resonate in one particular area that they can wrap their mind around and accept. And that's perfect. That's the place to start. You don't try and jump into everything at once because your mind's not going to believe it. And so if you don't believe it, you're not going to follow through and you're not going to see any positive benefit. And on top of it, you're going to get discouraged because the expectation was there and you didn't see it.
Mhm. Yeah,
So that
humans are
resonating
really simple.
frequency means so much. And it
Oh,
is us speaking the same language.
yeah,
The same words aren't necessarily the same language.
correct. Yeah, that's such a beautiful concept to share with that idea of these labels and these words. Um, there's this, the human beings are pretty simple. One of our principal foundations is we actually have to be in integrity with ourselves. And if we don't, really nasty things kind of happen. We get sick, right? When we're not in integrity. Things don't go really well when the vibrations start to become
Level.
distorted, if you will. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so we have this term, a very common term we use in psychology, self-fulfilling prophecy. We've heard this before. So
Here
I
to
have
go,
this,
my workshop coming up.
yeah, right. And so one of the moments I find really fascinating with new clients and even some of my long-term clients is how they get caught up on these terms, these labels and stuff like that. And so I had this woman come in one day and she was like, what brings you to see me? And she's like, well, I have fibromyalgia. And I was like, okay, I understand. And, what would you like, me to help you with? And she's like, well, I'm in chronic pain and I don't sleep. And I have, several other, my mood is down and all these things. And I was like, okay, well, part of the definition of fibromyalgia based on the, medical diagnostic terms is you have to have chronic pain in certain spaces of your body for a certain period of time. You have to typically have some sort of sleep dysfunction where it's caused some sort of, negative impact on your sleep. And so are you asking that I help you, change the pain response and sleep better? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, so you can't have fibromyalgia. And she's like, no, you don't understand. I have fibromyalgia. And I was like, I know. And in order to have that label, you have to have chronic pain and sleep issues and all these other things. And she's like, yeah, but I have fibromyalgia. And I'm like, okay, you understand that it was really hard for a long time to get acknowledgement for what you were experiencing and have someone believe you. And so you fought really hard to get heard and validated by your doctor. And then they gave you a label to describe your experience. That label is not who you are. You can't identify with the label. Let the label go. You're still you experiencing these things. And if we want the sleep to improve, if we want the pain to change, we don't get to hold on to the I have fibromyalgia, because again, integrity says you can't have fibromyalgia and not have chronic pain and sleep really great. It's the whole point of having fibromyalgia is that you have these other things going with it. So what would you rather have, the label and the symptoms, or not the symptoms? And it took her probably 3 months to really wrap her mind and her ability to accept that in order to be part of her healing, it's again, it's not one of those things where her expectation was, I'll just show up at his clinic and he'll just give me health. Like he just has it sitting on the shelf and he'll just
Magic
pull out
wand.
a bottle of it and pop it open and just hand it to me and I'm suddenly healthy. Like I ordered it for her. And I was like, health is a series of choices that we make minute by minute, day by day, and we reinforce. And a lot of people think it's this grand, extreme thing to be, that they have to do. And oftentimes it's the small, seemingly innocuous choices we make over and over and over, from, yes, what we eat, how we move, but also the company we keep, the TV we watch, or do we watch the news consistently? Do we seek positive? Do we reinforce do we fill our cup? Do we connect with nature? There's so many different layers to what drives healthy response. And so it took her a long time to realize that her vocabulary and her need to cling to that identity, that label, that word, was potentially part of what was also making her have those symptoms and stay in that state of
Absolutely.
being sick. Because again, we as humans have to be in integrity. We are going to create a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Absolutely.
We're really
Because
powerful.
we are creators.
Right.
And most people don't understand that we're always creating, consciously or unconsciously. And part of hanging on to labels like that, there's a story behind that for the people, whether it's that label or another label. And when they keep bringing that story forward into their present life, it's like the old-fashioned records. As every time they play it, the recording, it goes deeper and deeper.
Uh,
The rut goes deeper and deeper. And
Start again.
instead, it stopped the story behind this. And there are ways to absolutely do that. But it does take a while
Hmm.
for the mind to accept the change. And when somebody fights desperately, like she did, to hang on to that definition of herself because she wasn't being heard and people weren't understanding what she was trying to explain, what she was feeling. There was such a level of desperation there
Hmm.
that to let go felt unsafe.
Yeah. It felt like she had sacrificed so much to get that validation,
Mm-hmm.
and that without that validation, her identity wouldn't be whole anymore. And so one of the questions I often ask my clients is, um, instead of what are you doing this from, the question is, what are you doing this for?
Or absolutely.
Again, in I think of this analogy. I share, if you haven't noticed, I share a lot of little stories and analogies. And so one of the analogies I do is, you've got this gazelle just living its best gazelle life on the plains of the Serengeti, just eating the little savanna grass, happy as a gazelle, you know? And out of the grass comes this cheetah. Now, logic from a human perspective would be like, oh, the gazelle is running from the cheetah. But that's not what the gazelle's doing. The gazelle is running for its life,
Mhm.
right? The gazelle is running for life. And the cheetah isn't running from hunger. The cheetah is running for food, right? It's running for the nourishment and the sustenance that it needs to continue to live. It's always moving in the direction of for rather than from. Humans seem to have kind of made this a little backwards where we're moving from things. I don't want to be in pain. Well, what does that mean? I don't want to do this. I don't want to be in debt. I don't want to Okay, well, those are all moving from things. Those are all negatives that you're actually giving a lot of focus on. And we know that energy flows where attention goes, right? And so we're
Absolutely.
all likely to just get
And that
more.
will be a whole nother huge conversation for us to have, which I can't wait.
Yeah. So that idea of like, well, if you're focused on what you're doing it from, the focus is the from, which means all of that is constantly coming up in our mind as our target. And I don't know about you, but we tend to get what we aim for, significantly more likely to get what we aim for versus just randomly throwing, darts at a board, balloons on the wall. So I
Or
immediately,
spaghetti against the wall.
yeah, yeah.
See what
Me-
sticks.
Yeah, see what sticks. It's like you're just not as likely to get it to work. So the first questions really are like, well, what are you doing this for? What would you like your outcome to be? And you mentioned we are creators, and I think a lot of people get disheartened by that. There's a lot of, popular pop culture talk about, again, the law of attraction. You just simply say it and it'll just happen. And
Yeah.
there is power to the idea of making a declaration or identifying a clarity desire, and it will start to align. The laws of attraction do work. However, the law of gestation, like you put a carrot seed in the ground today, you don't have a carrot tomorrow. It takes 45 days approximately for that carrot seed to turn into a harvestable carrot. And so, like, that idea of the laws of gestation, the laws of things being attracted to nourish the carrot, give the carrot the sustenance, the sunlight, the water, it really will attract all that it needs to it to give it its manifestation. And it started from an idea. The seed is literally just an idea. If you cut open a seed, you don't find a little miniature carrot sitting inside that just gets bigger with water.
No, you don't.
You find, it's funny, I always ask this, like, I used to do this in a talk that I do where I would hold like an acorn. I'd be like, "What's inside of this? Is there a little baby oak tree inside, just like really, really tiny?" And they're like, "Well, no." And I was like, "Okay, well, this literally is nothing more than an idea. It's an idea of an oak tree, right?" And that's no different than our thoughts. Our thoughts are just ideas, and if we plant them in fertile ground, they will eventually be nourished. And that fertile ground needs constant care and thing. But we can't dig up the thought within an hour and get, a full-sized oak tree. It takes years for that oak tree to go into the ground, to be nourished, to be supported, to draw all that it needs to eventually grow into this big tree.
And that's
And our
very
thoughts are the
true,
same way.
especially in the physical.
Yeah.
But that's not always necessarily the way it works when you're working into the other realms, bringing the future into the present.
Yeah.
But here's a simple thing for people to understand. You're sitting on a chair. That was first a thought. Somebody
Mhm.
didn't think of a chair, and then instantly you could sit your butt down on it. No, it was an idea. It was a thought. And
Yeah.
in time, the ways how to make that happen, but it's still a gestation period.
Mhm.
All ideas, all formulation, but it is in action, things in action. So when you were speaking about it's all those micro choices,
Mhm.
every choice is coming into action to make
Yeah.
something happen. You can't just sit on the sidelines and thing, poof, and
Have, have
it
you
does.
heard this one, Karina? You might know, yeah, you might know this very famous saying. It's one of those riddles. And I ask people this a lot of times is so the riddle goes like this: six frogs are sitting on a lily. One decided to jump off. How many frogs remain? Colleen?
This feels like a trick.
So six frogs are sitting on a lily. One decided to jump off. How many frogs remain?
5?
It's the most
There's still
common answer.
six. There's still
The c-
six
yeah.
because he didn't say where they were located.
Well, he just decided to jump off. No one
Yeah,
actually said he jumped off,
yeah,
right? This is the catch that goes back to we make choices, but and Karina's hitting this really powerfully. She's saying it so simply. It's choice followed by action. Either the you have to we have to take action on these things. It's not just a declaration of, oh, I want perfect health. Again, what does perfect even mean? Oh, I want, $1 million. Oh, I want the perfect partner in my life. Oh, I want blah blah blah. It's that backed by action. And oftentimes that action isn't going to go from A to B. It's gonna be quite a journey. Because again, I feel like the universe has this way of going, are you sure?
yeah.
One of my favorite things to also, when it comes to this concept of holistic and health and all these things, is there's this difference between being interested in something and being committed to something.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of people, so what's the difference? If we define the two, so interest, well, let's do with commitment. Commitment is something that you'll do whatever it takes to get a commitment. And interest is something you'll do when it's convenient.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people have, especially today's culture, a lot of people are interested in a lot of things, but committed to very few things.
Absolutely. And it takes at least 80% commitment, whether you know how to go about it or not,
Correct.
in
Yeah.
order for it to happen.
Correct.
And with
Commitment is
that,
more, it's not so much the how, it's the
no,
resolve, it's the grit, the persistence that no
the
matter how many times
intention,
I fail,
the
I'm still gonna get up.
intention.
Yeah, I'm gonna get back up and I'm gonna go at it again. You put an obstacle in my way, I'm gonna figure out a way around that obstacle. You give me 10 setbacks and I'm gonna find 11 ways to move forward. So the catch to this is I think we've become a culture of people who want commitment outcome with only interest effort.
Yeah.
And there lies the massive problem to this. And so Colleen answered the question, and this wasn't scripted ahead of time, I assure you. She just answered the way she answered. But it was perfect because that's so often the answer. Yeah, I've heard everything from four frogs are sitting. I'm like, wait, four? Like how did we just lost a frog? And then they're like, there's no such things as frogs, or there's seven frogs. I was like, okay, six frogs on a lily, one decided to jump off. How many remain? And then like you get this standard one where it's like, well, five. Thank you. I know how to do basic math. And the answer again is there's six frogs still sitting on that lily because just because somebody decided to do something, they didn't back it with energy. They no one said they jumped off. They just said that the frog decided to jump off. And that's a really crucial understanding is you can make a declaration of I'm going to do something and then never back it up. And you're constantly in the state of I'm going to do something, which again is part of that I'm moving from versus I'm moving for. The minute you start to really identify why you're doing this, you start to take steps moving. In my case, I like to use the term moving the needle just a little bit, closer and closer to that outcome, but it's a journey, it's not always about the destination and it doesn't happen instantaneous. And these are really, in my humble opinion, these are really important concepts that if a person doesn't sit down and take some time to actually clarify and align with, they're often met with really disheartening or frustrating outcomes on their holistic health journey. Because
Absolutely.
they they
Absolutely.
don't realize that then they get caught up in the idea, well, oh, that thing didn't work, or
Oh, yeah.
oh,
Or
oh, it'll
they
work for
go,
others, but it won't work for
I knew
me.
it wouldn't work, right?
Correct, right. They start to justify, or they're like, they change their they change their focus moment by moment. Like, oh, I gotta do this, oh, I gotta do this, oh, I gotta do this. And it's like, have you given anything time to actually work for you? Have you committed to any one thing versus being just constantly interested in the next new thing? Shiny, shiny toy syndrome, where it's like, ooh, what's the new fad? What's the new thing? And so these are really important places to start the conversation of holistic health to help a person, make those changes and create those changes. They want to not just have as a momentary, oh, I'm here and for just a moment, I want to feel better. But we're talking like lifelong shifts that really stick with you over time and you can build upon. It
Absolutely.
starts with identifying these really core understandings,
And with those
defining.
core understandings, they can do it when they start to connect to their core connection and quiet that chatty mind that keeps looking outside of themselves. Ooh, maybe this, maybe that, and drive themselves crazy. They have to come into a place back and sit inside themselves and quiet themselves in order to start to gain the clarity, which most people don't want to do and take the time.
Well, it's
But
uncomfortable.
of course
It's
it is.
uncomfortable.
That's why people avoid
I mean, we're not.
trying to take a look at really what is bubbling up inside. And the uncomfortability really is just for them the unknown, and they blow it up to be something a lot bigger and harder than what it really is
Mhm,
on top of it.
mhm,
So, yes, these distinctions really matter. And for me, with the way that I work, the very first commitment is to be able to sit down and breathe
mm,
very specifically, to come out of that fight or flight crazy mind into that very calm and resting place where they start to gain their clarity.
mm,
Okay, if nothing else, they'll pause for a moment instead of react.
mhm,
And then there's space for you to help have them understand the distinction. And once the distinction comes into their mind and they start accepting it, now they can go on a path forward.
mm.
And it is all about the whys. Why are they doing it? What are they going for? Because that is what is going to sustain them when
Mhm.
they think something is not working. When they reflect back to, oh, this is what I'm going for. This is why I'm going for. The other
Right.
stuff goes away. It's not as loud in the mind.
Mhm. Yeah, there's not as much distraction. That gazelle, I assure you, the gazelle is running for its life. It's not thinking about like, well, I didn't finish my meal, or, I wonder what's going to happen next week, Thursday. How, Eddie the giraffe is doing today. The gazelle is very focused and it is committed. It's not interested in staying alive. It's not like, well, I don't really feel like running. I didn't stretch today. I don't feel great. The gazelle is very motivated to run for its life, that it will tap strengths it never knew it had possible. It will hit speeds and agilities and take risks and leaps and all these things to acquire its goal. And it'll do the very best it can. And it doesn't always get there. I get it. And the lep, because again, the cheetah is equally committed to its four. It is not running from hunger. It is running for food, and it is committed to feeding itself and its babies and all those things. And so it too is committed to the chase. It is not thinking about like, well, did I get a good start on this run? Did I give my position away to the gazelle too? So it's just committed until it can't any longer, and then they reset, right? And then, but they don't quit. they
No, and that's
they
just
go
it.
they stay consistent with their choices. So You know, you mentioned the mind a couple times. I have a saying that we do. Like I tell my clients, the mind thinks like the heart beats. In Chinese medicine, we call it monkey mind, this idea of, the mind that can't be tamed. And again, like when we look at the mind as an organ versus this thing that just exists within us, you want your heart beating. And you don't have to think about your heart beating. You don't have to consciously sit with your heart to have it beat, right? It does it all for you. And so when you look at the mind and you go, wait, the mind thinks like the heart beats, it means I don't have to be with my mind all the time. My mind can think all it wants. That's what it's designed to do. But I don't have to be with my thoughts. I can then choose to be with my thoughts. And so it's instead of trying to be in this perfect position of constantly controlling our mind, constantly have it wrangled in, that's not how humans function. We don't control our heartbeat. We don't control our breathing. We don't control our mind, but we can choose when we want to drive that energy
It's
and
how to focus our
yeah,
mind.
yeah.
I'm
And when
not
we
talking about controlling
yeah,
when
yeah.
I say harnessing the energy or redirecting.
No,
It
totally.
is about the focus. No, I'm just clarifying it for the audience there, just in case.
Yeah.
Um, so it is definitely, it's an automatic thing. And so the mind is there to help us put things into more detail. It's there to help us to
What's
protect
the
us. It's
experience?
constantly the protective personality going on. And that's from the input that we experience constantly. But sometimes when that input isn't so great, stories are created from that. And the mind keeps churning it out
Mm-hmm.
as if those are real at that point.
Right.
It doesn't mean the experiences weren't real, but it seems to get extrapolated and blown up out of proportion the longer you hold on to the story.
Mm-hmm.
And the mind's just trying to protect us.
Mm-hmm.
But if that no longer serves us, why should we allow our mind to keep going that direction when we actually can help direct it somewhere else with our focus when we, again, our free will, choose?
Mm-hmm.
It is about choice.
Mm-hmm. And the breath is a wonderful gateway to taking out that it's like the bridge between that conscious and unconscious and allowing the mind, if it, you know, don't think of the color red. Don't think of the color red. Don't think of the color red.
Then you're going to
One
think
of
of
those
the color
things. Of
red.
course, now we're all thinking of the color red, right? So again, it's like we don't always have that ability. So, but yet we don't have to be with it. We can be like, okay, I'm just going to go back to my breath, bring this all back to what's my focus? What can I do? I can focus on the inhale. I can focus on the exhale. I can focus on the sensations of feeling the air expand in my belly and my chest. I can release it. And then I can start to dial in or what I like to call tune in to what's present in that. So there's a wonderful presencing to this. There's a way of also breaking those patterns of those thoughts. I have a lot of my mom's a wonderful person. I love my mom and I adore her. And yet she'll tell you, like, just by when you talk to her, her inner monologue is extremely negative. And it's fascinating. She's not even really aware how negative her monologue goes. And it's self-deprecating monologue. And it's hard sometimes where I'm like, Mom, you're not what you just said you are. Please stop reinforcing it. And she's like, I know, I know, I know. I'm like, but you don't. Otherwise you would stop. And I'm like, just come back and breathe with me. Just breathe. What are you feeling right now? Are you real? And it's this fascinating world of allowing ourselves to again declare what we're define these things, declare what we're doing this all for, and then reinforce it with little incremental movements in that direction instead of these big wins. Oh, I crushed it. I solved all my problems. Everything's perfect. And it's just not going to stay that way. Like
No,
life is just going to,
definitely not.
follow a flow. But I think that's really crucial to understand this concept of holistic health.
I Well, obviously, I, I do as well. We do as well. And in spiritual science, the breath really puts the reverence to the breath and the sacredness of the breath because it is life force energy. Without it, we wouldn't be here.
Mm-hmm.
And so in spiritual science, whether it's Sufi, energy codes, Reiki, doesn't matter. It's Qigong, it's all the same. That the breath comes in as spirit. And then when we put our attention, our focus to using our physical senses to hear it, to feel it, then we allow a communication with our body itself, and from that communication, then the mind can follow. And the body has its own language to tell us what's going on and where we need to pay attention to. And we might be feeling a symptom of something in our body, but stay with it enough, then we get to see what is behind the
Mm-hmm.
symptom,
Mm-hmm.
which isn't the outcome
Right.
of where you usually feel it. And yes, in the physical realm, you also have to take care of yourself, nourish yourself right, get more in alkaline and not acidic. And that's a whole nother the world we'll talk about another time. But it's all there for us. And it is where we can, hello, mind, let's focus on this. I choose to focus on this.
Mm-hmm.
I choose to understand why I want this, that what I'm going for, and the fact I commit to it,
Mm-hmm.
which means I take action. You can't commit and not take action. The two are synonymous,
Right.
folks, by the way.
Yeah, otherwise you're just that frog on that lily.
That's right. Oh, I love you. I love your analogies. I hope all of you have been enjoying Jeremy's little stories and see yourself as these different characters because they're very relatable. And it really helps us kind of absorb a different perspective of how we're viewing things. That's why stories are so powerful. And you're
Absolutely.
great at them.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. The one thing that I feel like my real calling here as a health guide, as a mentor, I call myself a holistic wellness architect.
I love
As
that.
I help people build and craft the life they want, it's about asking really powerful questions, but simple questions. It's not the power, it's the power is in the simplicity. It's in the profoundness of that it can mean multiple things. It so part of my journey here is to inspire people to fall in love with this thing we call the human experience.
Mhm.
It's such a temporary glimpse. If all of us live to 120 years on a cosmic level in this, and we're part of all of it, beyond and before, I get it. But in this incarnation, in this physical body, even if we were to live well like into 100, and most of us don't, it's such a short experience. It's such a finite moment.
It really
And if
is.
we can live that in almost like this steamy love affair again, if we can fall in love with the human experience, it's easy to love times and love life when it's all positive and rainbows and fireflies and all the cute things of life, right? It's hard sometimes to love it when there's true struggle, true suffering, pain. And yet there's still beauty in those moments. There's beauty in the struggle. There's beauty in the joy. And bringing the whole totality of the human experience together and falling in love with that is part of my purpose in life. And so, like, I definitely don't want my clients to be in pain,
Of course
right?
not.
Like, you know, and yet more often than not, I would say probably 7 out of 10 times. When a patient sits down in front of me, the first thing I'm like, what brought you here? And they're like, I don't want to be in pain anymore. And I always feel bad having to break the news. I'm like, well, every spiritual and physical warrior to every walk the planet comes to this one realization that pain in life is inevitable, but suffering is optional. And there's a big difference. It's like I don't like even children. Did you probably know this. Colleen, I don't know if you know this one. Did you know that our natural painkillers, epinephrine, norepinephrine, our painkillers are 6 times more powerful than morphine?
Wow.
Children, actually, their pain response is 6 times that of adults. Because as we've been exposed to our own pain-killing hormones and neurotransmitters, we become more tolerant to it. So in a sense, we need a larger dose to get the same fix with each exposure, right? So over time, we develop a tolerance, which means as we age, our natural pain-killing responses don't have the same impact on pain. So we feel more pain. This is why, as an adult, we're more achy and sore. We're stiff than we were when we were kids, right? And then in addition to that, after the age of 25, we stop producing collagen at the same rate we were when we were children. So by the time we're 40, we have 50% less collagen production than we had when we were in our 20s. Why is collagen important? Collagen is the most abundant protein in the body. Collagen allows for structure, but also for some squishiness, right? It's why kids are pretty spongy. So a child can be going crazy, fall, and they'll pop up and bounce, and then they'll take a really hard hit and they'll cry, but they're like within minutes, they're over it. Their
They even
natural
forget it even
painkillers
happened.
are 7 to 8 times more powerful than morphine, and they're spongy. Well, when we get older, we don't have that. We have less of an impact of the painkillers, and we're not as spongy, and we stiff, and we've also accumulated all these stress responses and all these other behaviors that have probably taken us down. So it's like a lot of times I look at my clients and I'm like, well, are you really shocked that you're in pain or that you're sore? And yet, what would you like to do about where would you like things to go versus moving from? And again, even children feel pain. Like no one lives pain free.
Mm.
Pain is just such an amazing concept because it is the way our physical body tells us there's a problem, that it needs attention. And so are some of the other signs, rashes, skin things, headaches. There's certain signs the body shows, right? It only has so many ways to bring your attention to it. But one of the most powerful things is pain. And if we start to look at, instead of like, oh, I'm in pain and pain is bad,
Yeah.
instead we turn the conversation to, oh, I'm in pain. This is information. What is it telling me? What's it asking of me? What's it informing me about?
Exactly.
We can now start to again have a different conversation. And again, the big difference is pain in life is inevitable. It's the suffering that becomes the optional part, which is why a spiritual, mental, emotional journey is just an important, because again, the suffering is in the mind. The suffering is in the woe is me. Why did this happen? Instead of like, well, how did I choose a series of choices that led me to this? And now, could I make different choices that lead me away from this? Am I truly aligned with my purpose for being on this planet? Am I living in my highest integrity? All these concepts start to become a bigger conversation in the holistic health conversation. And I think those are, again, really important distinctions. So it's a fascinating
It is.
how we get to where we are and how these things really do interconnect, hence the holistic aspect of
Well,
it.
absolutely. And I know that we're putting out a lot of ideas out there for you all at once. That's our purpose for this particular show, as we break each issue down for you as we go along. And it's something that even if you just hear us and you haven't heard this before, it starts to plant a seed. And the seed will start to take root, and it will have its own period of time of gestation within you. So that's why we're bringing up all these issues. Some of them may seem very far out there and go, oh, no, 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 that isn't me. But when you sit quietly, I have a feeling you're going to start to relate a little bit more and see a different way to go about things. Our goal, completely and totally, is to help your perceptions change enough so that you can honestly make better choices for your life. And in making those better choices, you're going to learn to actually love your life, love your experience of being human, no matter what was previously considered bad and good. You'll see that the universe actually is in your favor and is behind you all the way and will help you in every area needed. But it also depends on how you speak to the universe and what are your thoughts. What is your speech? What is your behavior? Because it all matters. That's where the word holistic truly comes from. And it impacts you on all the realms. And yes, you may have your attention in one area more than the other at a time. And that's perfectly great because it's a big thing to unpack all at once. And the goal is not to overwhelm you, and your mind will start to close down to try and protect you if you really try to take on too much because somebody said so. It's not about what somebody says to do. It's getting that integrity back to yourself, coming back inside of you, being quiet, and really, what do you want to do? What changes do you want in your life? Because in the end, only you can make them. Things aren't outside of you that are going to change your life and sustain you, not in the holistic, total format of loving your whole life. And so this is what we bring to you. And we will bring it to you every month on Thursday. So you just want to keep watching us on Thursdays because different shows are going to pop up now. And we're going to come and this particular show will be here for an hour for you because it's just too rich and juicy not to elaborate a little bit about what we're saying. And we certainly need the analogy stories to help us see it a little differently. And we would love just to have you and to share this. If you hear anything possible that you would like to comment on, we'd love to have you. So we'll be watching for you, and we certainly hope you'll be watching for us. Is there any closing statement, Jeremy, you would love to leave our beautiful audience with?
Yeah, just thank you for your time and your attention, your curiosity. Um, it all starts with compassion and curiosity. You know, the journey of 1,000 steps, as cliche as it is, starts with a single step, right? You start where you start. Or the other one, how do you eat an elephant? Well, one bite at a time, right? Like these big, big concepts, they're usually achieved through little simple changes, reinforced consistently. And it's really easy to get caught up in all the madness and all the terminology and the science or the art and all of it. Center, like you said, Karina, coming back to your breath, really slowing things down, really looking inward. So is where you're gonna find that. And then I believe this to my core, when you're ready, when you make that declaration that I am ready and I am committed, the universe does align in a way to support you on that. You'll get trials without doubt.
Oh,
Don't
yeah.
think the journey's
Oh,
not going to
yeah.
be without trials. But if you look at the hero's journey, every single one of them always gets the support team they need. They get the people they need to support them. They get the mentor, they get the sage advisor to help them on their journey. No one person did any of it on their own. And
That's right.
so, this is really key. Like, it can feel really overwhelming to feel sick, to feel tired, to feel constantly in pain. And it does crazy things to us. I'm not saying that you should just sit with your pain and take it and suffer and all those things. But when you really make the decision that I want to change, and this is why I want to change, the support you need will come, and it will come rapidly and consistently in ways that you didn't even know would be there. And maybe that's part of why we're here now and you're watching this. This is part of, you made a declaration to the universe and you needed the support, and boom, here it is. Um,
Oh, I
so
love
thank
that.
you. Thank you for, tuning in to us and taking just a little bit of your time. It's a privilege and an honor. And if you do have specific questions that you want us to answer, please, comment, or when you're on the show, please throw those in the chat so that we can have them asked, and we'll do our best. And as always, please know that this is for educational purposes and discussion. You're not truly under our care. And so please work with a qualified professional in your area, or seek us out if you really want to work with us directly. Um, but please know, like, you still need to work with somebody for some of these things. It's super important. Don't try all this on your own just randomly.
Yeah, we're not designed to do this alone. We really aren't. And in that vein, we will be posting this for replays in the video section, so you can come back and you can stop and listen to the portion that resonates with you the most. So that will always be there for you. And if this resonates more about just wanting to, how do I center myself and bring myself back to the core? And, what's this about being a self-fulfilling prophecy? And how can I change that? Well, on the 30th of this month at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be doing a complimentary workshop that will start exploring this, but you will actually start to experience what is the invisible realm that becomes tangible for you, and start to learn how to control it for yourself, to empower yourself. So we'd love to have you with that as well. You'll see that there will be plenty of things that throughout the months and the year we'll be offering many things just for you to come and enjoy and feel the support that somebody actually does hear you. And that's why we'd love to hear back from you. With that, since we are at the top of the hour, I would love to release you all. Thank you so much for watching. And we're sending you so many blessings and prosperity for your life. And we're here for you. Until next time, God bless. And I believe